Well, this is a departure from my normal type of recordings, but the last couple of days I have been suffering with a very bad toothache. And what I've come to realize is that my physical pain stirred up some emotional pain, a place I didn't want to go to. And I'm just simply sharing today. Maybe this will help someone. It certainly has helped me. For the longest, I thought if I acknowledged pain, if I acknowledged change, if I acknowledged death, if I acknowledged the negativity things in life, that was being negative. And what I'm understanding more and more is that we have to accept the obvious truth of change. And that when we learn to acknowledge the truth, it doesn't mean that we're looking at the dark side. What it means is that we're beginning to understand that we are not the only one who can't keep it all together. We no longer believe that there are people who have managed to avoid the uncertainty of life. And believe me, there are a lot of uncertainties of life. And what I've come to understand through my pain is that, yes, I talk about it. One of my favorite groups is Frankie Beverly and Mays, and their song is Joy and Pain, and I'll sing and I'll dance to it. But to actually live this song, to know that life is full of joy and pain, to accept that ride, to be on that journey, it wakes you up, it stirs you up, it shakes you up, and you begin to realize you can't run from it. It is part of life. And the better we can cope with it, I believe we can get through those changes more sane, and we certainly begin to appreciate life more. You know, when you're in pain, you realize that when you don't have pain, you can appreciate those days when you're not in pain. You're so grateful. I mean, the days that I'm not in pain, I get so much done because I'm thinking, okay, now here's a great opportunity. Let's get some things done. Let's enjoy life. Let's make things happen, because we never know when the physical pain is going to hit or the emotional pain. And the emotional pain of my son passing away has hit me so strong. It just kind of hit me from a blind side. I wasn't expecting it. And then as I surrendered to this ride, as I surrendered to this pain that was knocking on the door of my soul, I began to realize that I had never surrendered to the pain. I stayed busy. I took great pride in staying busy and hearing people say, "Oh, Jewel, I just can't believe you're still going, and you're still speaking, and you're still traveling." And that was kind of like a pat on the back of my ego. I thought, oh yeah, I am resilient. Oh yeah, I'm awesome. And now I realize that I was suppressing and pushing back the pain. And the pain has no name. The pain is overwhelming. The pain can be paralyzing. And you know, pain comes in many different forms. As I think about this terrible toothache that I'm dealing with right now, again, as I said, it awakened some emotional pain of loss, of coming to grips with the changes in life, the seasons in life, accepting things will never be the same in certain areas of your life. All of those take great courage. It takes a lot of courage to sit down and look at your life. And it doesn't mean you're being negative. It means that you're willing and courageous enough and brave enough to look at the truth. And now I really understand even more when it says the truth will set you free. It sets you free from illusion. It sets you free from addictions. It sets you free from false hope. It sets you free from just so many things when you're able to have the courage to tell the truth. And when it comes to grief and loss, it's not all the same. Grief and loss is not always about losing a loved one, as I have with my son. People can show the same symptoms of grief. I read in a book from Barbara Walters. She has a book about learning how to talk to people, and she has a section where she talks about how do you talk to people that have experienced grief. And she says, you know, that You know, grief and loss can come from going through a mutilating surgery, or when your marriage or your love affair ends before you are ready, or when you've just moved from a place where you've lived a long and happy life, or when your self-esteem has been punctured by the loss of a job or the failure to be chosen for an expected honor. I thought that was so great because that is true. We have to think about those who are grieving the loss of a pet. I think of my sister when she was so devastated when she lost her dog. And sometimes I look back and wonder, was I present? Was I there for her? Did I listen? Because I've come to understand the greatest gift you can give someone who is in a season of loss and grief is just to be present, to just listen, to not judge, to give them a gift of compassion. It's just, you can't measure that gift. And I have a few women in my life that are my dear sister friends, and my goddaughter and my actual sister, who are my gifts because they listen to me. And it's amazing because now I'm thinking, after 30 years of listening to people and coaching and counseling and wiping away tears and listening to prayers, I now see the value of my work, because for most part I've been listening and giving, and now the tables are turned, and now I'm on the receiving end. And I've realized that that's why so many people that are nurturers and givers and caregivers and leaders become such sponges, and they're so used to taking in, and they never learn how to receive. I don't know if that's a message for you, but that's what's coming up in my spirit right now, is to realize that sometimes we're in a lot of pain because we're out of balance. Either we are giving so much that we haven't learned to receive, or we're used to people giving to us and we haven't learned how to give. Balance, life balance is so important. Again, I just want to bring up this point that is really punctuated in my mind, that just because I'm now truthfully looking at situations in my life where there have been changes, where there have been shifts, where there has been loss, where there's been grief, where there's been regrets, it doesn't mean I'm being negative, Jewel. It simply means I'm inviting balance into my life. That there is darkness and there is light. The sun comes up and the sun goes down. The ocean ebbs and tides. The waves go in and the waves go out. You know? And so I'm accepting and learning and surrendering to the balance. I am speaking today because I needed to hear myself say out loud that, Jewel, it is okay to sit with your pain. It is important to learn how to sit and to endure. It is important to learn that it is temporary. Because you know what? Even as I'm talking, the pain is starting to subside. Okay, here comes a bubble thought. I've often said from many podiums that when you have a passion, it is a great remedy. It is a great healing narcotic when you are engaged in the things that you love to do. And perhaps that's what's happening now, is that because I'm doing what I love, and that is sharing and teaching, the passion of what I do has become my narcotic, and the pain is getting more dulled. I have been in bed for 2 days with just pain. But then I realized that I was not only nurturing and trying to dull the pain of the tooth, but I was afraid to allow the pain to come to the surface of losing my son, who passed away in my arms, who kissed me 3 times on the cheek and slipped right through my arms into the great eternal. And as I looked over my shoulder and saw him in the bed, there was such a glow. All the pain that he suffered from cancer, all the pain he never told us about, it was gone. And he was lying there with a glow. And I thank God every day for the gift of being able to experience that. And the one thing that I have learned about grieving and about helping others to walk with you through the grief, it's a paradox. You know, it's a paradox. I love it when people ask me about him. I love when I get to say his name. And then sometimes I don't want anybody to ask me, because if you ask me, I feel like I will just implode. And so I get it why some people feel very awkward around someone who's lost a loved one, because it's a tricky thing. You know, we get upset if you ask, we get upset if you don't ask. I'm just being honest and transparent. Isn't that crazy? I get excited and I feel honored if you ask me about my son and ask me what happened. And then there are days, don't ask me, don't say his name. I can't handle it. So I'm just having a moment of truth with you today, because I don't know who's listening to this, but I pray that if you are sitting with some emotional pain or some physical pain, my spirit is saying that somehow there's a connection. My spirit is saying that somehow one is trying to get your attention, to pay attention to the other. That if you are in emotional pain, there may be some physical pain in your body that you may be ignoring and you haven't gone to the doctor. Or maybe if you're in some physical pain, maybe you have not addressed some emotional pain of feeling rejected or lonely or betrayed or feeling overwhelmed or stressed, or people are taking advantage of you. Or maybe you're feeling emotional pain because you know you're in a futile relationship. Maybe you're in an abusive relationship. Someone's controlling you. Maybe you're in a dead-end job and you just haven't really sat down to deal with that. And so I just simply want to close with 3 things that I have learned from Dr. Brené Brown, that says the 3 things we need in order to live our lives more wholeheartedly. We need courage, we need compassion, and we need connection. I pray that you will have the courage to face the dark side of life, that you will have the courage to sit with your emotional or physical pain and learn to adapt, to cope, to heal, to forgive, to let go, to do whatever you need to do, to medicate and meditate, but not medicate with the wrong things, but medicate your body and medicate and heal your emotional and your physical body. I pray that you'll have the compassion to forgive yourself for things, for those missteps, for those opportunities that were missed, for those choices that you wish you hadn't made. I pray that you'll have compassion to sit down and really review where you are right now and renew and allow yourself to begin to create a new normal, and not to live with guilt and with shame and embarrassment and deep regrets. I pray that you'll have not only courage and compassion for yourself and compassion for others, because I tell you, the more pain you experience, you'll begin to realize that there's so many people around you fighting battles, that everyone is dealing with some degree of pain. And that leads to connection. It helps you to realize that you're not alone. It helps you to reach out to others. It's a sin to isolate and to withhold and to withdraw and to think that you're the only one. It is terrible when we withdraw and we don't reach out to others. And this has been a cornerstone of my work, is creating opportunities for us to connect, to share our stories. And you're going to be hearing more stories on my YouTubes. I'm going to be interviewing more people. I'm excited about the people that I've lined up that I'm going to be interviewing so they can share their stories. This was a rambling today, and I did it for myself so I could express and not suppress and be depressed. I did that for myself. And I pray that something was said and something was felt that allows you to open up and to release and to be brave, to have courage, to have compassion, and to connect with me or with others that will help you to be free, to be liberated from the chains that bind your soul, your purpose, your joy, your gratitude, your faith, and your praise, and your steps that are being ordered by the divine to live your best life. Because one of the best gifts of grief and loss is that it teaches us to appreciate life every day. Learn with me not to run from the uneasiness, the difficulty, the losses that come with life. Because the reason we suffer is because we struggle between the opposites of pleasure and pain, the opposites of praise and blame, the opposite of fame and disgrace, and the opposites of gain and loss, and success and failure. You and I are creatures of habit, which means we tend to deal with suffering by wanting to attack others, blame others, or overindulge in sleep, food, shopping, gambling, staying busy, sex, partying, or just simply living in denial, which leads to defeat and depression. I pray that you will, as I am learning to do, to heal, to cope, and to have the courage to live in faith, peace, compassion, Love and gratitude. Thank you for listening.